Good evening to all. I welcome to all of you for this our next session of Heritage of Interior Design of India. और मैंने कल आपको जो मैसेज डाला था कि एक टेक्निकल और एक सीरियस प्रॉब्लम होने की वजह से हमारा सेशन जो है कल का पोस्टपोन करना पड़ा था, जिसे हम संडे के दिन जो है वो कंटिन्यू करेंगे। संडे को हमारे दो अलग अलग सेशन होंगे और जिनको पॉसिबल नहीं होगा उसमें अटेंड होने के लिए उनको सभी को हम रिकॉर्डिंग भी जरूर भेजेंगे, जैसे कि हम डेली शेयर करते ही है। नाउ आई रिक्वेस्ट टू डॉक्टर सुचिता कामत मैडम, सो प्लीज कंटिन्यू आवर टुडे सेशन। मैडम, आर यू देयर? कामत मैडम, 1 minute प्लीज।
She is not there.
यस, जस्ट अ मिनट, जस्ट अ मिनट।
कॉल करत आहात।
वेट फॉर 2 minutes प्लीज। वेलकम मैडम, प्लीज अनम्यूट योर सेल्फ। मॅडम, आपण एंटर झालाय, फक्त अनम्यूट कराल स्वतःला, अनम्यूट कराल।
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Sir, I'm really sorry for the delay.
No problem, no problem. It's okay. If any problem for presentation from that side, may I present from this side so that you can talk?
No, sir, I'll try. First, I'll try. If there's still some problem, then I'll ask you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. हम्म. हाँ यार ते हे का नाही होत.
अगर आपकी तरफ कुछ प्रॉब्लम है तो मैं इस तरफ से प्रेजेंट करता हूँ ताकि आप जो है देखकर सिर्फ बात कर सकेंगे. मे आई प्रेजेंट?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'll just turn on my video.
ओके.
Yeah. Yes.
So will you present from that side?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Hello.
Yes, we can see. It's okay.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and very sorry for the delay. I was like having some issues connecting. So, like today, we continue with the day 4. In this, we cover temples in ancient India, religious significance of various features of Hindu temples, Buddhist chaityas, stupas, viharas, Jain temples, symbols of Buddhist faith, symbols of the Jain faith, and symbols of Hindu faith. Because it is a vast topic, temples covers a lot, and it's like a lot in details. So I've just taken a very few points. Yeah. So, temples in ancient India. Ancient Indian education aimed at the overall development of the students in a way that it would be beneficial to the entire society. The various arts were a part of learning, and so we find their profound impact on the development of our ancient culture. Temples are seen as a link between man and God and between the actual and the ideal, what is and what should be. So there are certain subtle aspects which we cannot see. We have human limitations. So temples are a link which connect man and God. And so they are symbolic. Temple construction and its decoration has always been important. The artistic skills were used in the best way possible, as those responsible for the construction considered it as a worship of the divine and not just a job to be completed. So we find each temple a masterpiece. So the people working to construct the temple, they took it as a responsibility. It was something spiritual and divine, and it was their responsibility to get it done properly. So that is why they put in their best efforts. It was not something which was a commercial aspect to it, really. So like it, and they wanted it to turn out the best. So every temple that is Thapati constructed, or his team um, helped him to construct it, was uh, unique in itself. And we have, that is why we have such masterpieces in the forms of these temples. A temple is usually called a devalaya, the abode of God. It is also referred to as prasada, meaning a palace with very pleasing aspects. Vimana is another term that denotes a temple in general, and the sanctum and its dome in particular. Tirtha is another name used for a temple, as Tirtha Sthan is a place of pilgrimage. So a Vimana, as we have seen before, is a very big structure, a tall and lofty structure. And so temples too were vimanas, because in any kingdom, in any city, like the king's palace, the temple also was very splendid and beautiful. It was rather more beautiful because it was the abode of God. So here we have the various styles of temples. The Nagara, which is the northern style, Dravida, which is the southern style, and the Vesara, which is a combination of these two styles. This was developed later because the features of the Nagara and the Dravida style, some were incorporated, whatever like the Sapatis wanted to add in best, because what would happen, the people would travel from one region to another. After completion of work in one region, they would travel to another place, and then if this happened, then they put in their best, and whatever knowledge they had got from the previous region where they were working. And so these amalgamations, these fusions developed in a new style. So here to the right is the Mundeshwari temple in Bihar, and it is the oldest surviving temple which is functioning. And to the left is the Dashavatar temple at Devgarh, Uttar Pradesh, and this is the oldest surviving temple. During the early Vedic period, the religion was ritualistic and not based on idol worship, so there was no need of temples. So we are speaking of the Vedic religion, which was more of sacrifices and a lot of hymns, a recitation of hymns. And in those days, people were so inclined towards the divine that they did not need temples as such. And it is believed that gods would come down to earth to visit the people, and they would directly communicate with the people. As time progressed, the development of new religions, Jainism and Buddhism, took place. To retain the popularity, strengthen, and revive the Vedic religion, certain measures were introduced, one of which was temple construction, and so the Vedic religion of nature worship evolved into idol worship during the post-Vedic period. So, as the passage of with the passage of time, people started they felt the need of some form, some place where they could uh, connect with the divine. Another reason being that in the Kali Yuga, people had become more involved with the material world and needed some iconographic form to worship. Hence, people started making idols and worshipping them in temples. The temple, being the house of the divine, was built more beautiful than the king's palace. So, ancient temples, to some extent, help us to understand the splendor and the beauty of palaces, which uniformly, which unfortunately have not survived. So since now the palaces are no more, but some temples have survived the test of time, and from whatever remains we can see of these temples, we can understand how grand they must have been when they were in good condition and they were functional. And also we can understand about the palaces, how the palace structures must have been. Certain like the from the carvings, there are lots of carvings which tell us about they have depictions of certain events. So from all this we can understand how life was in the ancient times. The temple, being the house of the divine, was built more beautiful than the king's palace. Ancient temples, to some extent, help us to understand the splendor and the beauty of palaces, with, which unfortunately have not survived. Being a prime location, they also help us to understand the town planning of ancient times. As the plans were more or less fixed and city planning was according to the same Vastupada Mandala as that used for the palace and the temples of that settlement. The temple is also the artifact created as a result of the desire to rise above the world of man, with the use of construction principles, their arrangement, its architecture and decoration, the ceremonies performed, the chanting of the mantras create an effect on a person entering the temple. These factors are aimed for achieving peace and to move towards the ultimate liberation. Temples are centers of spirituality, providing inner peace and strength. The location of ancient temples was selected such that they create positive energy. Thus, the sattvic gun is induced in the visitor. The Garbhagriha radiated maximum positive energy with the placement of the idol over copper plate Vedic inscriptions of mantras and yantras which absorbed the cosmic energy and radiated it. The Pradakshina path is at such a distance from the person circumambulating, coming within the radius of this positive energy. Thus, the body gets more time to absorb this energy. The devotee feels rejuvenated, calm, and happy. Since it is the abode of God, it is made as beautiful as possible. We have learnt about the rich carvings both inside and on the outside of the temples. These are exemplary temple interiors with beautiful paintings not only on walls but on the ceilings in mesmerizing designs and color schemes. Temples structures being enormous to bear the weight of to bear the weight many pillars were erected. Thus, we often hear about the temples with 1,000 pillars. So, why the temple had so many pillars? Because it was a very huge, very uh, heavy structure and a tall structure. So, to bear that weight, more pillars were needed. The base of a pillar is called the Vedika, while the top of a pillar is called the Kumbha or the Ghata. Its width is twice as its height. So here we are speaking of the height of the Kumbha or the Ghata and its width. The central portion of the pillar is called Kantha. The ornamental carvings on the pillars are known as Manda, as the word Mandana means to decorate. The pillars can be identified by the carvings on them. So pillars were not of just one type. They were fashioned. The stone was stone or even wood. When wood was used, that was in certain shapes. So based on that, the pillars got names, and again with the kind of carving done on it. So that also gave the name to the particular pillar. So they were categorized and they were known by these names. If the base is shaped like an elephant's foot, it is called Gajapad. If it has carvings of lion, tiger, it is called Vyalapad. If the ornamentation is of pearl strings, then it is called Pindapad. So, Pindipad. So if there were the base had these various aspects, then each type was known by the different names. Being numerous, they were intricately carved to add to the beauty of the structure. Pillars are classified according to their shapes. Chaturstambha or square pillar, called as Brahmakanta, it is noticeable in those facing the sanctum of temples. So the pillars which were towards the sanctum of the temple were generally square, and they were known as they were called Chaturstambhas or the Brahmakanta. The word Kanta means favorite, loved, or desired. Vartula Stambha. Here the first this figure has square and circular, both type of pillars. From the plan you can see this. And this is a Vartula Stambha here, individual Vartula Stambha. The Vartula Stambha or the circular pillars, called so as they are circular in shape. Vartula Stambhas were installed in temples as well as in houses and other buildings. Dirgha Stambha or rectangular pillars were usually installed in temples which have mandapas with many pillars, 100 or more pillars. So like when a mandapa has, that is a pavilion has 100 or more pillars, then generally the Dirgha Stambha was used, which is a rectangular pillar. Panchakona Stambha, called Shivakant, these pillars are generally seen in Shiva temples. They have 5 sides. The last one here, this in the second image, the last pillar, that is a last stambha, is a Panchakona Stambha. Shatkona Stambha or hexagon pillars are also called Indrakant. Ashtakona Stambha or the octagonal known as Vishnukant Stambhas. So the octagonal shaped the pillars having octagonal faces, 8 faces, were known as Vishnukant. Shodasha Kona Stambha or 16 faced pillars called Chandrakant or Purna Chandra. Rudrakant Stambha is one which has a square base, that is its Vedika is square. The middle portion, that is the Kantha, is octagonal, and its top, the Kumbha, either has 16 faces or is round. That is, the top is either having 16 faces or it is round. Chitra Stambhas are fully ornamented pillars. They were completely decorated with various carvings, and these carvings added beauty to them. That is why they were very pictorial, so they were called Chitra Stambha. 2 more important parts of ancient temples are Dwara, that is doors, having beautifully carved Dwara Shakhas. So this image here, these two are to the left of the, to the right of the screen. These are the Dwaras with the Dwara Shakhas. And they are very ornately carved, and the number of shakhas again has a lot of significance, and there are lots of details in this. And the Gavaksha carved stone grill windows. The grill was because air circulation was necessary, and the window was provided with these grills for providing just the air circulation, basically. Because the Garbhagriha is usually it's dark, so it shouldn't, too much light shouldn't enter. So probably the Gavakshas, the windows had these fine decorated grills, which would reduce the intensity of the light, and it would serve the purpose of ventilation. Stone, wood, or bricks were used for making pillars. Metals were not permitted for the construction of the entire pillar, probably as they are good conductors of electricity and will interfere with the energies within the temple. But metal plates could be used for ornamentation of pillars. Pillars made from a single material were called Shuddha, while those made from 2 materials were known as Mishra, and those in which 3 materials were used were known as Sankirna. Teak, sandalwood, wood from nut-bearing trees, etc. was used in wooden pillars. Stone, which produced a ringing sound like sandstone, granite, marble, were used for pillars. The locally available stone was a deciding factor for the other construction materials to be used. And the stone, even the idols, were made of a particular type of stone, and the sound of the stone means the carvers were so, the idol carvers were so efficient, and they had such great knowledge that they would just the sound of the stone, by tapping some instrument on it, the sound produced would tell them what type of a stone it was, and then to check if there were any cracks, because after the idol is made, it shouldn't get damaged. So even if there are initially, to begin with, if there is a fine crack, and if that develops later, then it is considered inauspicious. So first they would check that with certain plant extracts, plant juices, which would be applied to the stone, and these fine cracks, very fine cracks also would be noticeable. And they had certain methods of knowing which type of stone should be used for which kind of an idol. Significance of certain features in a temple. Ashtamangalas, these are 8 auspicious entities which are important while speaking about temples. According to the Agni Puran, they are lion, bull, elephant, a fan or a fly whisk, a jar, a banner, which is called dhwaja, a drum, and a lamp. According to the Garuda Puran, the Ashtamangalas are Brahmana, a cow, fire, gold, clarified butter, which is ghee, the sun, water, and the king. And like in the Ashtamangalas, the drum is mentioned, and there were other musical instruments also in temples, because the arti again was a very a grand ritual, a grand ceremony in the temple, and the beating of the drum and the various musical instruments helped in creating a certain atmosphere which was needed for the which added to the auspiciousness, and it was needed for the benefit of the devotees. The bell worship started with the ringing of the bell or the ghanta, as it drives away the evil. Ringing of the ghanta is a form of prayer for the entry of the divine and the evil forces to leave the body. The sound of the bell creates a harmonious effect on the brain and calms the nerves, as it influences the 7 chakras of the body by calming it and helping to concentrate better. Thereby, the person is aided to concentrate on the divine. The bell is cast from the metals like copper, brass, zinc, cadmium, etc. in a calculated ratio. Because the metal which is used will create a certain sound. So the ratios, there were there were calculations, they had certain fixed proportions and fixed ratios which helped to create a good bell. Dhwaja, the flag of the dhwaja is an auspicious symbol. It is also known as Lakshma, a mark or a chinha, dhwaja, which is a banner, or ketu, which is the flag. It is a symbolic depiction of Indra. If a bamboo was used for the staff of the dhwaja, it had to be straight and without discoloration. It is believed that by installing a dhwaja, the evil vanishes. Dhwaja Stamba, a flagstaff. In ancient literature, it is said that all buildings, prasadas, without a flag would be in vain. The purpose of the flag is to indicate the emblem of the deity in the sanctum. Ancient texts mention that when the flag was hoisted in front of the temple, God would be delighted. The texts also state that Vishnu is associated to the top, Brahma to the middle, and Shiva to the bottom of the flagstaff, which is also known as the Dhvajastambha. Hoisting the flag suggested setting out to conquer. The devotee coming into the temple would have firm resolution to conquer his nature. Looking at the flag would be a reminder of it for him. So when the person is outside, when we are doing our normal day-to-day activities, and when we enter a temple, there is a vast difference. The atmosphere of the temple is such, the structure of the temple is such that it induces positiveness in the person, and the elements and the entities inside and around the temple help one to get into that mood. The Panchadeep, in temples, there are generally big Panchadeeps made from brass or silver. Probably in ancient times, these would be surely have been made from gold. The Pancha Pran within the human body is represented by the 5 flames burning in the Panchadeep. Yeah, the Panchadeep here, this is a small one which is in someone's home probably. And These are the various diyas, the lights. Deepastambha, that is a light staff. It is a multi-layered lamp stand made of stone or metal placed axially next to Dhvajastambha. Individual oil lamps are placed on each bracket or niche. When lit, it is a spectacular sight. So this the image to the left is a Deepastambha, which has little niches in which the lamps are placed, and the one to the right has these brackets, and the diyas are placed on each of the brackets. The idol of the deity inside the temple is a symbolic representation and the focus of the presence of the divine. It represents some aspects of the cosmos which we cannot perceive through our senses. It is symbolic as it is present in front of the devotee as the object of his concentration. We notice idols with many hands. These represent the attribute of a particular deity. The more the hands, the more are the gunas, that is the attributes of that form of the deity. The nature of the attributes is denoted by the ayudha, which is the weapon held in each hand, and each ayudha has its significance, or the hand is in a mudra, which is a pose. So the kind of mudra again has a symbolic representation, and all these various aspects mean a lot of things. The growth of Buddhism and Jainism. Jainism and Buddhism flourished into popular sects. Development of rock cut architecture took place in the form of places of worship for large congregations. The Buddhist monasteries received royal patronage, donations from traders and common people. In these places, traveling traders got shelter, and at times they could safely keep their money. So, like they kept whatever their valuable possessions sometimes, because traveling in those days was very difficult, and a lot of robbers would be on the way. So they would, if they were regular travelers on that particular route, then the traders would sometimes even, because they were allowed to stay and rest for the night in the monastery, so they would keep their valuables also over there and collect them later. Gradually, it created a vast network among the traders of India and outside. Buddhism had an everlasting impact on the growth of art and architecture through the Buddhist style of art. The earliest sculptures depict the Buddha and the Bodhisattva in different mudras, like the Yoga Mudra, the Dharmachakra Pravartana Mudra. Buddhist art aimed at laying emphasis on the ways of inspiration and ultimately attaining nirvana by a sadhaka who is a devotee. Buddhism also helped in the growth and the development of architecture, by which chaityas, stupas, stambhas, and viharas were constructed on large scale. The Buddhist art and architecture had its impact not only in India but influenced the art and architecture of other nations which adopted Buddhism. The Buddhist viharas, monasteries, were built throughout the nation. Some of the monks became skilled medical practitioners. They provided free medical service and free education in the monastic school, thus rendering valuable service. They got the people to assemble at the monastery premises and preached Jataka tales about the life of Buddha, read suttas from the Buddhist scriptures, and thus increased the knowledge of the Dhamma. So, because they were preaching and they were propagating the religion, they adopted the method of teaching and preaching through stories. So the Jataka stories helped in because these were simplified, and rather than learning difficult text or reading some difficult text which some most of the people could not understand, then that it was pointless. So something easy was done, which by way of which the people would enjoy and they would understand what a Dhamma was. The Chaityas and the Viharas began to flourish, in particular along the ancient trade route known to us as the Silk Route. When the society or the kingdom was prosperous, it was good and suitable for the development of arts, which with time reached great levels. Of the two, the Chaitya Hall and the Vihara, in the rock cut manner, the more importance was given to the Chaitya Hall, which, which were used as prayer halls. But before the rock cut caves were used as places of worship, the chaityas were wooden structures. Like all the other structures, as we have seen before rock was gotten used as a building material, the chaityas were wooden structures. This is evident from the carved images of wooden Buddhist chaityas on stone slabs at Bharhat, Amravati, etc. The well-preserved stone railings of Bharat Stupa in Indian Museum, Kolkata, provide a pictorial representation of the contemporary wooden buildings. So the stone has been fashioned like as if it was a log of wood. They were cut in such shapes, and they were given the finishing also was done in such a way that it resembled the wood, because previously wood was in use as a building material. So we come to know from these surviving stone sculptures, we come to know how the wood was designed and how the joinery was done and how the overall structure looked. Initially, perishable and less durable materials such as wood, bamboo, brick, reed, cloth, and clay were used. As per the Hindu tradition, the use of stone, especially for construction of houses, was not permitted. Wood was considered as the best suited medium for making sacred objects, but it was perishable in nature, so it had its limitations, and it would decay and it would rot after some time. Thus, stone gradually took over its place. Stone structures, especially the rock-cut monolithic cave structures, have survived even till today. So they the stone structures, the rock-cut caves are monolithic because these were carved from one single rock, and all the parts within were again carved from this one huge huge chunk of rock. Those which are not only ornamentally carved, excuse me, but also have beautiful paintings done with natural colors. These colors are yet in good condition and retain their original hues. So because they are in the caves, they are well preserved, and the colors which they used in these ancient times, which were more than 2000 years or around 2000 years, so they were of such quality, and there was such chemical processing which they did, and the materials used were such that because they had this great study of the materials, so they have yet survived the test of time, and we can see them still in good uh, intact conditions. The palace and city scenes, the detailed carvings and fresco paintings of scenes of religious and mythological based events are depicted on these cave walls. These are so beautifully done and with such details that we learn a lot about the life, prevalent dressing and ornament styles then in use. Religion and practices followed almost 2000 years ago. The stupas were relics which housed the mortal remains of the Buddha or other important Buddhist saints. They were made from bricks or stone. A stupa has a large hemispherical dome with a flat top and a chhatra on top. In the first image, you can see the stupa, and right on top of it is the chhatra of the stupa. Chaityas are the prayer halls. Chaityas, being worship halls, were large pillared halls. They were beautifully carved and painted and were pleasant and attractive to impart peace and happiness to the worshippers. It generally had a rectangular plan with one end opposite to the main door. So the second image is a plan of a chaitya, main doorway ending in a semicircular shape and aspiral end. So this is the semicircular portion. The front is from this part is rectangular, while the other end ends in a semicircular dome, and the ceiling is a dome on top. So an aspidal means a semicircular recess with a hemispherical vault or a semi-dome. Since it is half like here, so this portion is this is called an aspidal end. You can see it here in the third image. These formed a circumambulatory. Oh, sorry, I've missed this. At this aspidal end was a stupa, which was a subject of worship. Along the walls of the length of the hall were a row of pillars on either side. These formed a circumambulatory passage or pradakshina path. These rows of pillars separated the pradakshina path from the large central hall where worshippers would assemble. Viharas. The viharas, which were residences for the monks and students, were individual tiny cells without windows. They generally had low ceilings. These were not ornamented and had plain and simple interiors for concentration of the inmates. In each cell here was a single rock-cut bed for the monk to sleep on. It too was carved out from the huge rock of which the cave was carved. There was a rainwater harvesting system which provided the residents with water for their daily use, including drinking. The cells were located on three sides with a central hall. At times, there were parallel rows of low-height, continuous table-like platforms. These were used as study tables by the students or probably for dining. Jain temples. The famous Jain temples at Mount Abu of Loon Vashi and Devi Vimala Vashi have circular mandapas which are surrounded by richly carved columns joined by strewed brackets. In Hindi, they are known as Tek Toda. So these are the strewed brackets. The entire stambhas are richly carved. The ceiling is more ornamental in these type of temples. The patrons of Jain temples were not only kings but also the merchants and the traders. Chandragupta Maurya became a Jain monk and travelled south and spread Jainism to the southern region of India. The earlier Jain temples were built on the plans of Hindu temple architecture. Since the artists who constructed the temples constructed structures for all prevalent religions, Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism, the styles used and the ideas from all religions overlapped and thus created unique blends. So as I've earlier spoken, the artists also used their skills at various places, and so they created new styles and new patterns also, which were used in the carvings. And since they work for all of all the religions of the building the holy places for all religions, so they incorporated their individual learned styles in these structures. The Jain temples were structurally like Hindu temples. but their themes and iconography used was of Jain religion. The earliest Jain monuments are found at the Udaygiri and the Khandagiri caves near Bhubaneswar. These caves were rock-cut structures carved as residences for Jain monks. They bear inscriptions and sculptures of Tirthankaras, elephants, women, etc. Other birds and animals also. Symbols of Buddhist faith. Among the earlier and the frequently used symbols in Buddhism are the stupa, dharma wheel, bodhi tree, and the lotus flower. The dharma wheel traditionally is represented with 8 spokes. So in the above image, the top image, you can see to the right side lower corner is a dhamma wheel. Dhamma wheel, traditionally represented with 8 spokes, can have a variety of meanings. These meant royalty, monarch, or chakravartin, but it began to be used on the pillars of Ashoka during the 3rd century BC. Since Ashoka was spreading the religion of Buddhism, and he incorporated all these the Dhamma wheel on the various carvings. He got them inscribed, he got them carved so that people could get more aware about them. The Dhamma wheel is generally seen as referring to the historical process of teaching in Buddhism. The 8 spokes referring to the 8 noble path, and the lotus refers to the quality of compassion and purity of the mind. The Bodhi tree represents the spot where the Buddha attained nirvana and represents liberation. The swastika was traditionally used in India by Buddhists, Jains, and Hindus to represent good fortune. In East Asia, the swastik is often used as a general symbol of Buddhism. Early Buddhism did not portray the Buddha himself. So he was represented by certain things. The idol worship had not come in Buddhism in the earlier part. Human representation of the Buddhist symbolism are the Buddha's feet and full representation in human form. And during the early Buddhist or early phases of Buddhism, Buddha himself was not represented, but an empty throne was used to represent Buddha. Or the Bodhi tree was also used. Jataka tales are a collection of stories about the previous lives of the Buddha. They are in the form of animal fables with morals. They provide information of how the Buddha lived many lives with the goal of achieving enlightenment. Buddha had taken many births in the forms of humans, animals, and superhuman beings. In each, he put in efforts to reach his goal. The Jataka tales helped in improving the moral standards of the people. They were widely used by monks and preachers in preaching the subtle and the complex lessons of a moral and virtuous life. In a simplified way, they also are enjoyable. The cave art, sculptures, and structural remains have helped us to understand the settings of society and culture in ancient times and to understand the philosophical teachings of the religions. Symbols in the Jain faith. The Jain faith has holy symbols that remind believers to certain principles and traditions considered auspicious, bringing good fortune and warding off bad luck. Many of these are characteristic of wider Indian culture and are therefore also found in other religions which originated in India, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. Each of the 24 janas has a particular emblem used as a badge of identity along with a color. Other traditional Jain sacred symbols include the swastika, the Siddha Chakra or Navapad. Some of these are grouped together as the 8 auspicious symbols, Ashtamangalas. More recent symbols of Jainism are the Jain flag and the contemporary Jain emblem. So this the image to the left is has Ashtamangalas in it. Then the central one is of the flag, and this is the contemporary Jain emblem. Dreams in which events or items appear are often thought to predict the future or reveal hidden facts. Not all holy symbols are visible or material. Mantras are holy syllables, words or phrases that are chanted many times, are holy and have great spiritual power. Symbols may be worshipped themselves or used in religious rites. Commonly used to decorate temples, ritual objects, clothing, and other valued items, they feature in art of all kinds. To Jains, the image of a holy symbol takes on some of the spiritual power of the holy of the symbol itself and is not just a picture. 8 auspicious symbols, the Ashtamangalas, is a collection of the most auspicious and the most commonly used holy symbols in Jainism. The Digambaras and the Shwetambaras, though, have different symbols enlisted. Ashtamangalas relate to royalty and status or the wealth, abundance, or fertility. Some symbols, such as the canopy or the fly whisk for royalty or high status, symbols of sorry, affluence and fertility, such as a full jug or pitcher, represent growth and development. The swastika is a cross with each of its 4 arms bent at a right angle and turned in a clockwise direction. Derived from a swastik, from a Sanskrit word meaning swasti, that is well-being, the word itself connotes good and beneficial. Considered highly lucky, the swastik sign has 2 main interpretations in Jainism. In the first, the swastik's 4 arms correspond to the 4 possible states of existence, which is gati, in the word of rebirth. In the second, the arms represent the fourfold Jain community, Chaturvidha Sangha. Srivatsa, the fly whisk are known. The fly whisk is also known as the chamara. Nandyavarta is a holy complex form of the swastik. Vardhamanaka, an earthen bowl that is sealed with another earthen bowl. The Vardhamanaka is used as a lamp. In Sanskrit, it is called Samaput. The Bhadrasan, holy seat or the royal throne, is considered as the seat of honor for those who have attained nirvana. Kalasha, a holy pot or pitcher drawn before a Tirthankara. 2 divine eyes as well as 2 ends of a scarf are also drawn on sides of the kalasha. It is important in all auspicious ceremonies. Matsya Yugama, a pair of fish. This sign depicts the flow of divine life in the cosmic ocean. Darpana, that is a mirror, it reflects the true self and nature of a person because of his clarity. The Siddha Chakra or the Navapad is the most popular yantra in Jainism. The Sanskrit word Siddha Chakra means circle of perfection and is the Shvetambara term. The sect of the Digambaras called the same symbol Navapad. As its name suggests, the Siddha Chakra has 9 parts and looks like a flower with 8 petals. The 9 components represent the 5 entities and the 3 jewels of right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. Last element symbolizes a characteristic that is often called the fourth jewel, right austerity. The Siddha Chakra is found in many temples and is an important part of many rituals. Dreams. The motif of the dream features in many Jain stories and legends, usually as a way of bringing hidden knowledge to light. Dreams may foretell the future, instruct the dreamer, or conce- point to concealed religious artifacts. The best known dreams in Jain legend are those experienced by the mothers of potential jinnas. The pregnant woman had 14 or 16 dreams that follow a strict sequence. The sect of the Digambaras believe that she has 16, while the Shvetambaras claim that she had 14 such dreams. The auspicious dreams are frequently seen as carvings or paintings in temples. Dreams have also been key in creating or reviving pilgrimage destinations. For centuries, Jains have performed journeys to holy sites, which are usually associated with events in the lives of the Jainas. In legends, a dream may have led the dreamer to find a site of pilgrimage. A mantra is believed to bring good fortune and keep the chanter safe. Mantras are often an aid in meditation because chanting a holy formula helps to focus the mind of the meditator and lessen distractions. Using a mantra as decoration is done with a purpose, as spiritual powers are believed to reside in these mantras is transformed to the item that the mantra decorates. Adding a mantra to a garment is believed to protect the wearer and bring good luck. The Ashtamangalas are often seen as freestanding metal objects in temples of the Digambara sect. A yantra is an aid to meditation, which is one of the 6 mental austerities that detaches karma from the soul. Symbols in Hinduism. Swastik. Swastik is a combination of 2 words, Su and Asti. Su meaning good and Asti means to exist. So swastik may may the good prevail, and it symbolizes auspiciousness and fortune. It is one of the 8 chinhas. The swastik mudra in dance indicates devotion. This auspicious symbol is widely used in Hindu art and architecture decoration. It is considered so powerful and having protective powers that in ancient times this ground the that the ground plan of forts was structured like a swastik. The Vishnu Puran mentions swastik as an ornamentation on the hood of Sheshna. Footprints. Footprint has mythical and ritualistic importance. The feet of the holy person, animal, or of the divine are believed to bring prosperity. The footprint symbol is drawn at the entrance of the house to signify the entry of goddess Lakshmi, who brings abundance and prosperity with her. O Padma, or the footprint of the cow, is drawn to represent and appreciate for the selfless service of the cow and symbolizes the sacred qualities of the earth in the form of the cow. So, as we have studied before, how the name Prithvi was given to the earth. So, from that, we can relate the cow and the earth. Knot or a loop. A knot is a complex symbol and represents the idea of binding, creating an enclosure, and imparting protection. The granthis or endless knot, the granthi or the endless knot is an Ashtamangala symbol. The kalasha The Kalasha or the Purna Kumbha is a very common auspicious symbol. It signifies abundance and fertility. It is also one of the Ashtamangalas and is believed to bring success and good luck. In the Rig Veda, a pot full of water was associated with Indra, who brought agricultural prosperity. The Purna Ghata is a significant part of all Hindu ceremonies and is believed to carry fertilizing water of life. People placing the Purna Kumbha at the doors of their house is found in many Puranas. So, placing the a Purna Kumbha at the entrance was a very old practice. Lamp or the Deepa. The lamp symbol stands for dispersal of ignorance. The upward moving flame stands for the path of wisdom. Trishul, this symbol, the symbols associated with gods. Trishul, this symbol is the royal trident of Shiva and stands for his rule on earth, heaven, and the underworld. It represents the three energy channels of Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna Nadi of the Kundalini Shakti. It also stands for the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Gadha, it is the symbol of bravery and intelligence according to Vaishnavism, as it is one of the weapons of Vishnu. It denotes strength, destruction of evil, and protection of good. Dhanusya Ban, which is bow and arrow. The bow and arrow is classical weapon of warfare from Vedic period. When drawn as a symbol, it stands for authority, power, and concentration. Sorry, Damru. The Damru is the favorite instrument of Lord Shiva. As a symbol, it stands for music, knowledge, and speech. Panini got the 14 Maheshwar Sutras from the music of the Damru played by Shiva. So there is a story about Panini Rishi, the great grammarian, Sanskrit grammarian, that he could not understand certain things in the way they were taught. So he did severe penance, and after that penance, Shiva got pleased with him and appeared in front of him, and he played his damru 14 times. And the 14, the naad, that is the sound created by the damru in these 14 times, gave Panini the various sutras of the Ashtadhyayi. They form the base of the Ashtadhyayi. Shankha, which is the conch. The Shankha, which is an instrument of Vishnu, is drawn as the bestower of fortune and wish fulfillment. It is also associated with God Kuber, who is the giver of riches. The Vishnu's conch is called Panchajanya. It is a recurring symbol in sculpture as many temples in many temples, and is used because of its auspicious nature. Gandhabherunda. Gandhabherunda is a lesser known but a very powerful symbol which is found carved on forts like Shivneri and Raigad, in some caves in Karnataka also. It is the royal symbol of the king of Mysore and was found on the coins of the Vijayanagar Empire. It has the image of a two-headed bird with spread out wings. Horse. Horse is a symbol of power, energy, wealth, and abundance. It also represents swiftness, grace, and desire. According to Hindu mythology, it is one of the jewels which rose during Sagar Manthan. It is the vehicle of Lord Surya and also a symbol of royalty. The elephant is a symbol of strength, wisdom, prosperity, and royalty. It is a Mangalkari or auspicious symbol associated with Hinduism and is associated with Indra as Airavat, his elephant. Indra has this white elephant who is his vehicle, and the name of this elephant is Airavat. It is found as the base of pillars in temples and is known as Gajapad. Thank you.
थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट। ये एक एंसेंट से लेकर के, यानी जो आपने शुरू किया, और ये हमारे टेम्पल केस में पर्टिकुलरली जो हमेशा मैं हमारे सेशंस में भी ये कहता हूँ कि आलय जो है, यानी देवालय, भले वो ईश्वर का घर ये समझकर निर्माण किया हो, बट उसके पीछे की भी जो कंसेप्ट है, और जिसमें फिर वो प्रासादालय हो या फिर हमारा कामनालय जिसे हम निवास स्थान ऐसा कहते हैं, तो इस तरह से ये कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्क जो डेवलपमेंट होता गया, और छोटे छोटे घरों से राजप्रासाद जैसे बने, वैसे रॉक कट केव से लेकर के, रॉक कट केव टेम्पल्स ऐसा हम जिसे कहते हैं, उससे लेकर के ये बड़े बड़े टेम्पल जो निर्माण हुए, इसमें जो अलग अलग सिम्बॉल्स और ये सभी जो यूज होता है, ये भी आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से बताया। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। कुछ
Thank you,
अगर
sir.
क्वेश्चंस है तो वो हम देखेंगे चैट बॉक्स में। नहीं, ओके। इफ देर आर एनी क्वेश्चंस, हाँ, यस, अत्रे जी पूछिए, शैलेश अत्रे जी।
सर, माय क्वेश्चन इज, मैं थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूज हूँ। कंफ्यूज इन द सेंस, शुड आई बी आस्किंग अबाउट हिस्ट्री, और शुड आई बी आस्किंग अबाउट iconography, और शुड आई बी आस्किंग अबाउट the styles of architecture? Because I have doubts in all of them. From that perspective, I want to.
आप सवाल पूछिए, उसके हिसाब से जैसे जवाब होगा वो हम जवाब देंगे।
Okay, great. So let me start from the beginning. जो मैंने कुछ notes लिखा है. Okay. So the first question is, आपने बोला था कि जो देवालय बनता है उसमें बेस में सिर्फ कॉपर रखा जाता है।
This is where the idol is placed. So
Correct.
there is a, yeah.
So idol के बेस पे is it only copper?
Yes, because
or
the
is it normally only copper? That is my question.
It's normally copper ऐसा कह सकेंगे, क्योंकि कुछ रेफरेंसेस में कुछ रखा जाता ही है ऐसा भी नहीं है, क्योंकि ऐसे कुछ टेम्पल्स जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया ने फाइंड आउट किए हैं उसमें कुछ प्राप्त भी नहीं हुआ। तो इसका मतलब ये भी हो सकता है कि दोज who follow that tradition they put the coppers, but कुछ जगह पे कुछ भी नहीं है, बट इसे छोड़कर और कुछ पाया गया है ऐसा भी नहीं है।
Because there were a couple of Hoysala architectures also, or the Hoysala temples, or if we go to certain Dravidian architectures, you would find that there are a couple of other metals also which are similar to the bells in the temple.
So then that depends on the conductivity, because like every metal has.
I agree to the point. My question was mainly, is it a hard and fast rule that it has to be only copper, or
not like that, not hard and fast। आप जो कह रहे हैं, मैंने जैसे कहा था कि जो जिस तरह से ट्रेडिशन फॉलो करेगा उस पर वो डिपेंड रहेगा, बट इट्स नॉट हार्ड एंड फास्ट टू यूज ओनली कॉपर।
ओके। एंड मैम, आपने पिलर्स के बारे में बताया, जहां पे कि जो आपका कुंभ होता है या जो घट होता है, घटम इज अबाउट the width, it is about twice that of the height. So I did not understand that. आप क्या बोलना चाह रही थी?
Because it is wider. It is the width. It's like you can say the diameter is more. It's the height will be equal to the radius. If you take a circle, because पहले कैसे होता था कि circles, all the structures, the basic designing drawing, the drafting was done with the help of circles. So the diameter would be the width and the height would be equal to the radius.
So this is only for the portion of the ghatam?
Yes, yes. Yes,
not
yes,
for
only
the whole
ghatam.
pillar?
No.
Okay. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, and would you be able to differentiate between the uh, Rudrakantam and the Shivakantam in the pillars?
The Shivakanta is 5-sided and the Rudrakanta has 16 faces to it. That depends on the number of like if you draw it's like a pentagon. The Shivakanta is a pentagonal in shape. If you take the section of it, it is pentagonal, and the Rudrakanta will have 16 faces. Hello?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, Vikram ji, you want to ask anything? Vikram ji.
Yes, sir. Yes, Namaskar, ma'am. Ma'am, in the
Namaste.
second or third slide, you showed two particular structures. One was of Bihar and one was of Devgarh. There was another particular picture. There were three particular structures, and you said that the Bihar one is the oldest, which is in continuity, and at the same time, for the Devgarh one is the oldest one. I want to know
Yeah.
which one is oldest, because when we see
They,
the Devgarh one, it is in the rock formation, and I think further Bihar, because Bihar is in that region, we do not have further any stone or rock. It might be of a brick structure. Which one is older, ma'am?
the Devgarh one, the Dashavatar temple. That is the oldest temple, but it is not functional. Like there is no puja done in it. Prayers are not offered. While the other one, that is still functional. People still worship it.
Of which age is this, the other one, the Bihar one?
I cannot give you this answer right now. Could I?
No, just a minute. आपको क्या कहना है कि विहार पहले का है या देवगढ़ टेम्पल पहले का है? आप क्या पूछना चाहते हैं एग्जैक्टली विक्रम जी?
मैम ने बोला ना कि भाई विच वाज द ओल्डेस्ट वन, चलो बिहार का मान लिया, देवगढ़ का हो गया, तो जो बिहार वाला है वो किस पर्टिकुलर सेंचुरी या किस पर्टिकुलर टाइम में क्रिएट किया गया है?
नहीं, बट वो कौन सा विहार है उसके ऊपर तो डिपेंड है, क्योंकि विहार भी अलग अलग बने हैं। अभी मेरा एग्जैक्टली वो पता नहीं है, मैडम ने कौन से इसका दिखाया था वो।
इट इज अ
The
टेंपल,
Mundeshwari temple.
हाँ, ओके ओके, अच्छा। हाँ तो हाँ, ये देवगढ़ का जो है वो ओल्डेस्ट वन है, और ये भी उसमें उन्होंने जो दो तरह के टेम्पल बताए, एक जो जहाँ पर आज भी पूजा हो रही है, और एक वो कि जो बने हैं मगर जहाँ पर पूजा नहीं है। तो ये दोनों कॉन्टेक्स्ट से देखना होगा। उस हिसाब से जो पहला वाला है उस हिसाब से उन्होंने ये जो बताया कि दशावतार टेम्पल इज एन ओल्डेस्ट टेम्पल।
for what about Bihar one? When it was constructed, in which particular era or in which particular century?
If I'm not wrong, it
वो
is 6th century.
हाँ, यस यस, ग्रेट गुप्ता
This one?
पीरियड।
Okay, thank you,
या
thank you, thank you,
क्योंकि
thanks a lot.
ये स्ट्रक्चर अभी मेरे सामने है, वो देख के हम बोल सकते हैं, या फिर वैसे भी हम उसको तुरंत 1 मिनट में फाइंड आउट कर सकते हैं गूगल में डाल के भी।
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
जी,
And at the same
जी।
time, the question is further, you said that the rainwater harvesting was used in the Chaitya halls. Further,
No, this is Viharas. The Viharas, which were the monasteries,
okay. Whether it
not
was
the chaitas.
it was the first time further they were using the rainwater harvesting, or we have some other examples of rainwater harvesting earlier than this?
Rainwater
इसमें भी
harvesting in such. Yes, sir.
रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग का हमें तो इंडस में भी प्राप्त में ये जानकारी मिलता है। उस समय के इसमें कुछ कुएं इस तरह से वो बने, शहर का रचना ही इस तरह से है कि रेन वाटर भी वो कलेक्ट किया जाता था। इसके भी कुछ रेफरेंसेस हमें प्राप्त होते हैं इंडस सिविलाइजेशन में, और विहार और ये तो उसके बाद का पीरियड, ऐसा हम समझेंगे।
That means we were using the modern technology very early.
यस यस, या वेरी ट्रू।
With the rest of the world.
या और पर्टिकुलरली आप अगर अजंता एलोरा, बाकी तो वैसे रेफरेंस है, बट मैं यहाँ पर्टिकुलर बताता हूँ। हर एक इसमें पर्टिकुलर मॉनेस्ट्री के लिए जो यूज होता, वहां पानी का स्टोरेज एंड उसका जल जो ड्रेनेज सिस्टम भी जो है, बोथ आर एक्सेलेंट, दोनों भी बहुत अच्छी तरह से किया गया है। आज भी वो हम देख सकते हैं, उतना ही बेस्ट है।
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
या मोस्ट वेलकम। Are there any more question? Radhika Chitrae ma'am, you want to ask anything?
Yes. I have seen some videos regarding Vimanas, that is aeroplanes, and on the YouTube. Also, there are some chambers in the old, in southern Indian temples where they are locked for the general public actually, but they in the videos they have shown that there are chambers for parking the aeroplanes of that time. So is this true, Vimanas? So is this true actually? I mean, the temples were used as airports. Is it true?
No, see, in one of the previous sessions when I spoke about the palaces, I think it's the first session. So there I spoke about Vimanas being of two types: the aeroplanes and the buildings which were more than 7 stories high. So since the temple also was that high or even higher, so that is why they were called Vimanas. Please, like,
बट
to my
इट्स
knowledge.
नॉट इट्स नॉट फॉर द पार्किंग ऑफ विमानास. ये जो आप बोल रहे हैं वो तो नहीं है, क्योंकि एज पर आवर रीडिंग अप टू नाउ अभी तक ऐसा कोई रेफरेंस हमने नहीं पढ़ा. इफ यू हैव, प्लीज शेयर विथ अस सो दैट वी विल गेट आल्सो द नॉलेज.
Yes, sure. Another one thing is there are many chambers in from the video which I have seen, the many chambers of the temples which are not open for general public. What is the reason for all this?
It's the only reason, the treasure which they have from hundreds of years. And दूसरी बात है, वीडियो जो बनाने वाले लोग होते हैं, मैंने कई सारे वीडियोस अभी तक देखे हैं, तो मैं ये कहता हूँ कि इसमें लोग क्या करते हैं, हमारा वीडियो अधिक से अधिक लोग देखे, इसके लिए उसमें पर्टिकुलर जो वास्तविकता जिसको कहते हैं उसको छोड़कर ऐसी कुछ बातें ऐड कर देते हैं.
Okay.
और वैसे करके स्प्रेड करते हैं, तो ये भी उसका एक कारण हो सकता है.
और एक मेरा सवाल, मतलब इट्स कांस्टेंट इन माय माइंड, व्हाट इज द मेन इंटेंशन एंड रीजन फॉर बिल्डिंग ह्यूज टेंपल्स? सोने के टेंपल्स बनाए हैं, बहुत बड़ा पंडाल वाले टेंपल्स बनाए, व्हाट इज द रीजन फॉर दैट?
That would be for the ego, a person's high inflated ego should come in control. So we have to be aware that, like, we are nothing compared to what the divine is. That is the
No, just a minute.
one aspect.
It's not only that, but
Yeah, that is one
कंपटीशन ये
aspect.
भी था. द्रविड़ में अगर हम देखेंगे तो कैलाश को जैसे हम देखते हैं तो हम उसको टच कर रहे हैं, यानी स्वर्ग को हम टच कर रहे हैं. अगर नॉर्थ को अगर हम बात करते हैं तो वहां तक, यानी हम आकाश तक छू सकते. ज्यादा से ज्यादा ईश्वर के नजदीक जाने की भी एक बात जो है वो उसका स्ट्रक्चरल केस में होती थी, और उसका जो विस्तार इतना बड़ा ये था. इसका दूसरा भी कारण प्रमुख ये है कि कई टेम्पल्स ऐसे थे जिसमें उस समय का पूरा गांव बसता था मैंने तो उनका पर्टिकुलर अपना जो वर्क होता था. ऑल द कम्युनिटीज लिव्ड इन दैट कैंपस सराउंडिंग, वो जो भी टेम्पल का सराउंडिंग कॉम्प्लेक्स है उसमें. और उसके साथ साथ ये ट्रेनिंग जिसको हम टीचिंग जिसको कहते हैं, अध्ययन गुरुकुलम हमारे, ये सभी इसी में होते थे. सो फॉर दैट पर्पस इट्स स्पेसेस लाइक दैट.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Most welcome. Yes, Divya ma'am, you want to ask anything?
Sir, thank you. Not ask anything, but for the question what Radhika ma'am said, I wanted to add for what you said, like the ancient temples were actually an entire ecosystem of that village. It seems I have read about that. They say that it was for prayers. There were goshalas, there were schools which were learning, like the gurukulas, like you mentioned already. And there were like weddings were happening in temples before. There were no chowdhuries in those days. So you call it as Gayatri Mantap. And also the weddings of the deities were performed. Then there was art and music which was performed, like Bharatanatyam. Natya Mantap was a part of the temple. And also the major part was the travelers who came from other kingdoms or different towns used to stay in temples. And they were accommodated within the temple complex for them to stay, study, and study either music or dance or any other literature also. So it was an entire ecosystem. I have also read that they were also a buying and selling aspect in one part of the temple. So which is why we see most of the ancient temples, which is very vast in area. So it was an entire ecosystem, basically.
Very,
So I
very
just wanted
true,
to
and
add that. Like you said.
till these practices continued in our southern temples.
Yes, very true. Correct. Yes.
Sir, I would like to ask just one more question. The structure of the temple, is it related to a human body, related to the chakras of the human body? Because I have gone through this concept as well.
Yes, yes, it's very true. Yeah, it's very true. And there are a lot of architectural plans and the information or the books. One best book regarding this. Just a minute, give me 1 minute.
I think it is a part of Agama Shastra which talks about that. That yes, it is a part of the human body. The temple entire structure
This
talks
is
about all the chakras.
this is the one of the best book which was published by D.K. Printworld, The Iconography of Architectural Plans. The Iconography of Architectural Plans, and it's wrote by Frederick Bunz. He came in India and visited thousands of temples. बहुत सारे अच्छे ये करते हुए उन्होंने इसमें मंडल सिद्धांत और ये सभी हम जो बॉडी वगैरह जो कह रहे हैं, तो इसके बहुत अच्छे प्लान्स और इसके साथ ये किताब जो है वो बनाई गई है. एंड इट्स वन ऑफ द एक्सेलेंट बुक जो भी मैंने देखे अभी तक जो हमारे पास अवेलेबल है.
Sir, can you share the photograph of this book, please? The first
Definitely, yes, in our group I will share it. Yeah,
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
most welcome. Yes.
Thank you, Divya ji.
Thank you, Radhika.
Yeah. So with the kind permission of all of you, now we'll stop here today's session. Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Good
ma'am.
night.
Thank you. Good night.